A, 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 A.
So now that you've seen what the patient presented for, severe exudative tonsillitis, do you know the diagnosis? Here's a slow motion play of the same patient with this very, very swollen, almost kissing tonsils, both with exudates in the crypta of the tonsils. Basically, exudates are the equivalent of pus. So stay tuned. I'm going to do a full discussion on this patient's diagnostic process as well as the management. So at first instance, you see a bad sore throat like this, then the default is, oh, it's strep pneumonia. And most likely it is, most of the time it is, but there are other considerations you need to take place. But before we jump into what the diagnosis is or what the bacteria that is causing it, let's go back to the clinical scenario and how this patient presented. He presented with severe throat, a fever, and a heart rate of 130. Let's stop right there. So he has a source of infection, a fever, anything more than 100.4 or more, and tachycardia. That means he has 2 out of 4 SIRS criteria and a source of infection. By definition, that patient is septic. I know sepsis used to be used for people who are extremely sick and in the ICU, but the new definitions for sepsis is very clear. 2 of the SIRS criteria plus a presumed source of infection gives you sepsis. Severe sepsis is defined as sepsis plus end organ damage, so you had to check electrolytes, liver function tests, lactate, and so on to define whether there's evidence in the blood work or the exam of end organ damage, and that would classify as severe sepsis. This particular patient, we have to say, at least is septic, is tachycardic, has a fever, and has a source of infection. So my initial treatment on this patient, once I see that bad sore throat and the tachycardia 130, is to do a blood count, CMP, which includes a liver function test, and to start an IV and give him some IV fluids. Because he's in so much pain and discomfort, I'm going to give him IV fluids hydration, 1 liter bolus at the very least, maybe 2, depending on whether or not he responds in terms of the tachycardia. And then a dose of antibiotics, because most likely this is bacterial. Whether it's strep or not, we don't know yet, but most likely it's bacterial. So my initial antibiotic of choice for somebody like this would be ceftriaxone, but there are others. You could have used clindamycin, for example, or any kind of bacterial and antibacterial that covers mouth things. I'm also going to give him a dose of Decadron. The Decadron is a steroid. I can give it through the IV, and that'll decrease the swelling of the tonsils, the pain, and make the patient feel a whole lot better. The disadvantage is steroids kind of decrease the body's ability to fight infections. So you don't want to do this chronically, but a single dose just for comfort and care, sure. And I'm going to order at least 1 liter of fluids, maybe 2, to bring that tachycardia down, and of course re-examine the patient. In terms of diagnostics, I'm going to do a swab on the throat to look for strep. It's a strep screen, which can have false negatives. If it's negative, I'm going to have to follow up with a culture. It'll take 48 hours, and then if it's positive, then we will treat the patient. And the other test I'm going to do on this patient is a monoscreen. And now the monoscreen, it has a flip of a coin on how accurate it is at figuring out if it's truly mononucleosis or not, but I'm going to order that in. So CBC, CMP, maybe a lactate, put the IV, Decadron, ceftriaxone fluids, and then I'm also going to do a monoscreen and a strep test. In this particular patient, the mono test was negative. Oh, so is strep. No, it wasn't. The strep test was negative. However, you saw that throat. It has swollen tonsils. It has exudates bilaterally. So that looks to me like bacterial infection. There are many other causes of bacterial infection besides strep. So I'm going to go ahead and treat that patient with antibiotics. Anyway, when I went back to recheck on the patient's heart rate was down to the 110s. He felt a whole lot better after the steroids, pain medicine, all that stuff. So I ended up giving him 2nd liter of fluids. That brought it down under 100. He felt great. He was tolerating fluids. He left home with a antibiotic prescription. I covered him with penicillin. Could have been amoxicillin, Augmentin. Could have been Omnicef. There's plenty of choices you would have done. I did not put him on steroids orally because I gave him a dose of Decadron. And of course I told him about not going to work because whatever it is, it's potentially contagious. So now there you have it. This is a workup of a patient from start to finish. You saw the clinical findings. I hope that helps you in your own practice what to do with patients with severe exudative tonsillitis, as this patient had, please share comments, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. You know the drill.